For our final college coaches show, we head into the South, and we're talking today with assistant coach at Georgia State, Lars Davis. Lars, how's it going?
It's going great down here. How's everything going up there?
Colder than it is in Georgia, I imagine. But I don't know about that. What's the temperature like?
Today it's been great. Our first day of live BPs, we actually had snow. Yeah, I mean, not that many people out there would believe it, but we were actually battling snow. There was a bunch of guys on the team that had never seen it before, so it was kind of a unique experience.
Yeah, I went to school in Alabama, and it snowed a couple times, and no one drives. School shuts down. It's probably the same there, I'm assuming.
The whole city shut down for an entire week. It was kind of a surreal experience coming from northern Alberta, where hey, awesome, it's snowing today, so you slow down a little bit and put the snow tires on your car. It normally takes me about 20 minutes to get home. It took me about an hour to go about 8 or 9 miles, just because everybody was going 5 miles an hour. People were sliding off the road. It was a very surreal experience.
Yeah, so let's talk about something a little bit warm. Let's talk about baseball and this upcoming season, a little bit about you. So your playing career ended in 2014 in Double A, and you jumped right into coaching at the University of Florida. So what was it about coaching? Did you always think that you were going to go into coaching after your playing career was over?
Not always. It was something that kind of popped up a little bit later on in my career. I knew I always wanted to stay in baseball. I didn't know necessarily it was coaching. Had eyes on playing in the big leagues, but that dream unfortunately just never got realized. I'm not saying anything bad about my career. I had a very long and very successful playing career. I enjoyed every minute of it, but being able to stay in the game was going to be huge for me, and had an opportunity to start at University of Florida, and couldn't have been happier for the opportunity.
So you had a pretty successful run there at Florida as well, four straight College World Series, a national. You're the first national champion we've ever had on the show, so there's that. But going to the College World Series, tell us a little bit about that atmosphere and what that's like, right from when you get there, kind of the time you get there for all the media and all that kind of stuff to playing the games. What's that experience like?
It's and again, I never played in the big leagues, but in my opinion, it's the closest thing to being a big league player that a college player can experience until they get there. It's you're one of the top 8 teams in the country. Everybody kind of descends on Omaha. You see it every year as almost like a pilgrimage. The stands are filled, 25,000 people at every single College World Series game. You're treated like a celebrity. It's police escorts in, it's autographs, it's photo sessions. It's a really cool experience, especially for the players. As a coach, being there, just kind of taking it all in. Getting to stand on. It's now Charles Schwab Field, but it was TD Ameritrade when we were there, and getting to stand on the field and know you're one of the best teams in the country is a great experience as a coach.
So 2017, you were the best team in the country, won the College World Series. What was that experience like?
That was, it's one of the things that as a coach you always strive for, right? As a team, your goal. Every one of the 309 Division One teams that are going to set out here on February 14th in the NCAA, that's their dream, that's their goal. And fortunately, we were the last team standing in 2017. It was awesome. The group of guys that we had, the coaching staff, the support staff, everybody that we had in that program was just phenomenal for that year. And we got a little bit lucky, and I think every World Series champion, college or big leagues, will tell you the same. There's a little bit of luck involved, but it was one of the best chemistry teams that I've ever been around.
What did that experience, not just winning the national championship, but those 4 years that you went there and the other runs that that you've been on in your career, what did that teach you about what it takes to be successful at the college level?
I think the biggest takeaway is that it's not just talent. I think you can talk to anybody on any one of those four World Series teams, and a lot of them would tell you that we weren't necessarily the most talented in that 2017 year. Now, we had very, very good players. They still had some development to do, but that was a team where everybody knew their role, everybody played their role the absolute best. The 2015, 16, and 18 teams that we went there with them as well were great. And again, don't get me wrong, very, very talented. They were great teams as well. But just that playing together, having all the right personnel, and having that little bit of luck fall into place as well.
So University of Florida, obviously a ton of great players coming out of the program, big leaguers. Is there one that stood out during your time that kind of is the best player that you've worked with?
And I don't want to single anybody out just from the standpoint of, there's a tremendous amount of talented players, and I can name off a ton. We had two rookies of the year there, Pete Alonso and Jonathan India. I was fortunate enough to be able to coach a bunch of excellent pitchers, Brady Singer, Jackson Kowar, Alex Faedo, AJ Puck. There's a lot of guys, Dane Dunning. There's a lot of guys that have gone through there that I was fortunate enough to be around and coach. So, I don't want to single one out that, hey, he was my favorite guy to be around or, most talented. I think everybody that came through there, in my opinion, was very, again, was not only talented, but and worked incredibly hard at the craft. Like they wanted to be the absolute best. And that was really one of the things that helped contribute to our success.
I was hoping you were going to mention Pete Alonso. A lot of talk about him in the Toronto Blue Jays right now. He may sign by the time this airs, but tell us a little bit about Pete in college and now watching him in his big league career to where he is today. How have you seen him develop his game?
And Pete has been absolutely fantastic. I remember him in college and phenomenal player all the way through he was there for 2 years while I was there. And as what you see on TV, he's kind of been the same person, at least in my opinion, all the way through, right? He's a fantastic human being. He is incredibly talented, one of the strongest people I've ever been around. One of the cool things about him is that when you had something for him hitting, you only ever had to tell him once. Hey, Pete, let the ball travel a little bit further. I want to see if you can hit a backside home run into the right field bullpen. Okay. And, off it went. It was just an absolute natural hitter. I remember he came back the year after he got drafted. So when he came back for the alumni game, just watching him take BP after a whole off season of the Mets training program, and just watching him launch balls over and over and over again, kind of like watching him in the home run derby.
Yeah, of course. Is there a small part of you that hopes he signs in Toronto? You can
Oh,
tell.
absolutely, absolutely. I'd love to see him. I'd love to see him up north of the border. I think he'd fit in great up there.
Yeah, so jumping to your current role at Georgia State, assistant coach, focusing on hitting. How did that opportunity come about? And tell us a little bit about what made that so appealing for you.
Absolutely. And so the way that the NCAA was working at that time, we had the third coach hadn't or the third full-time coach hadn't yet been approved. And so my role at Florida, I was the volunteer assistant coach. I still had a lot of responsibility on staff, but wasn't a full-time staff member. And that's just kind of the way that the NCAA limited the number of paid coaches. I'd met Coach Stromdahl a couple times before. The opportunity kind of came up right after the COVID year, where there was a lot of talk about hiring freeze. They weren't going to expand coaches, and knowing for my coaching career, had to get out, had to recruit, kind of had to go and make sure and prove that I could do it. Almost on my own, right? Not that I wasn't ungrateful at Florida and absolutely loved every minute there, but part of growing as an individual, growing as a coach is branching out a little bit. And so took the role. I've had a phenomenal opportunity here. I've had a lot of success coaching the offense and really learned a lot from a recruiting standpoint and a hitting coach standpoint of how to get the most out of some players.
And staying in the South in the warm weather probably didn't hurt either.
No, not at all. And I think that was again, we laugh about having just a little bit of snow here, but we're incredibly fortunate. We've been out. I think we got snow on January 10th, and I want to say January 14th were the few days that we got snow. Or no, excuse me, January 19th were the few days that we got snow. And other than that, I mean, we've been on the field. We have a great opportunity to be out there every single day taking BP ground balls. Again, I went to school in the North, went to the University of Illinois, and my junior year, we didn't get outside until our first game. We played over in Texas, and our first actual day outside on the field was down in Texas at the tournament we played in.
Yeah, so you mentioned the success that you've had coaching the hitters there. So let's talk a little bit about that. Do you have a general hitting philosophy that you try to portray to your hitters? Or obviously it's going to be individualized based on the hitter, but is there certain things that you teach them or mindsets or approaches that you have with them?
The term that we use for all of our hitters, kind of our collective hitting philosophy, is selective aggressiveness. We want to there's a lot of young hitters that get one or the other. They get overly selective or they get overly aggressive. We want to combine kind of the best of both worlds. We want to be the aggressor, but we want to play our game, not everybody's got different strengths in the box, especially in zones that they hit in. Some guys are low ball, some guys are high ball, some guys have opposite field power, pull power, whatever it is. And early on in the fall, we do our best to identify that. We'll take a lot of different metrics, a lot of different videos, sit down with the player to help identify who they are, and then we will incorporate our philosophies into their game. Part of it is it's not a one, and you alluded to it, it's not a one size fits all. Right, it's definitely not a cookie cutter approach, and we've had a great deal of success identifying that and really helping develop those strengths in our hitters.
My next two had two questions kind of go together. You started in 2015 at Florida. Obviously, it's 2025 now, 10 years, 11 years. How has coaching hitters changed? And how has technology played into that? And how much do you use that when coaching your players?
We're starting to use it a lot more, and I mean, when I first started coaching, the technology was just coming onto the scene with TrackMan. StatCast was starting to be a thing. It was kind of right at the end of my playing career, right into the start of my coaching career. And pitching has been light years ahead of hitting, and hitting is slowly starting to catch up with available bat sensors and different tracking technologies. But here at Georgia State, we use a lot of them. Now, again, they're more of a validation of what we're teaching and showing guys that in conjunction with the video and just traditional, hey, this is what you have to feel. I think we do a really good job of combining everything. I know there's other people in programs that subscribe more to just what they're going to see on data, or I know there's some other coaches that'll completely send it away. But we do our best to stay up on top of whatever's going to really help our guys.
How do you go about walking that fine line of using that data? But I'm sure it can be overwhelming for some guys, and some guys have a certain feel for the game. How do you go about using both of those tools to create a good hitter?
I think you really have to identify the personality of the hitter from the start. There are guys, and I've coached guys that all they want to do is see every number. They'll take one swing and they want to look at the iPad on, what their attack angle was, what their rotation speed was, where the ball went, how hard they hit it, everything. And it gets away from that competitive nature. Kind of turns into just a video game where, at the end of the day, it's just you and the pitcher. You do have to kind of battle it out. But there is kind of a fine line. Now, some hitters are able to digest more. I will say, I'm human. I've made my mistakes. There's been some times where I've overcoached hitters on the data side out of it, where I've given them way too much information and kind of that paralysis by analysis where they're not even able to take their best swing. I've done it on the other side where I haven't given them enough, and it's taken a little bit to catch them up, just especially with the technology. But understanding who they are as a person, understanding what kind of swing they have, and understanding what data points can help them and really help reinforce what they're working on, I think is huge.
Time now for a mound visit, courtesy of the Baseball Zone. Today, Coach Sean Schaefer shares his thoughts on college recruitment.
Right now, there's a lot of changing, within the college baseball landscape between NIL deals and the transfer portal, which has happened both over the last, 2 or 3, 4 years. So it's becoming harder and harder for high school athletes to get offers to play Division I baseball. With that, any offer that they get is going to be a good offer and one that they should always consider. From a college placement standpoint, I think if you're going to get an opportunity to play, you should go and play. There's no point sitting on a bench. And, as much as we want to tell our friends and family that we got to play or U.S., college baseball, I think we all want to play U.S. college baseball and not just sit on a bench and not just go down for the experience. So understanding that what's best for you as an individual player, and it really doesn't matter what level of baseball that you're playing at. Everyone, if you're good enough, you're going to get seen. And if you're good enough, you're going to get an opportunity at some point in time. But in order to get those opportunities, you got to be able to get on the field and play the game.
This has been a mound visit courtesy of the Baseball Zone. Now back to the action.
How big of a learning curve has it been for you as a coach? Because, when you played, there was technology, but it's not nearly what it is today.
Huge. I remember all the way back playing in junior college in Canada. We had it was a VHS camcorder. You recorded on VHS and you took it out, and we had a 4-head VCR, and that was our slow mo. You could see everything on that. But I mean, now we're into real-time playback, slow motion. We've got cameras here in our cage that'll record every swing, and they'll play it back in real, like they'll play it back instantly after contact's made, where we can dissect a swing right away. So the volume of data that is available now is massive. And again, going back to it, there can be too much at times. So it's been a big learning curve. I kind of started on the pitching side of things, learning that. When TrackMan and Driveline and all of those technologies and programs came out, learning that stuff right away was huge. And now as the hitting stuff starting to catch up, it's again, it's learning it. And I think the harder part is learning how to properly apply it rather than just learning what all the numbers or terminology means.
So that kind of leads into my next question is there's a lot of high school players and coaches that'll listen to this. What should a high school hitter be focusing on to develop to play in the college game? Because like you mentioned, sometimes it can be information overload. Are there a few core things that you believe that a hitter should focus on?
I think the number one thing that young hitters should focus on is consistent hard contact. I've talked to a few young players in the recruiting process, and they want to spit out all their metrics, what their attack angles are, what their EV is to the pull side, what their max EV is off a tee, and all of that stuff's great in by itself in terms of metrics. One of the things that we continue to look at, not just Georgia State, but baseball in general, is that consistent hard contact. One of the we don't want somebody that's striking out in 40% of the at bats, but the one time he does get a hold of the ball, he's able to to put it over the wall. We want guys that are able to have those good bat to ball skills and that consistent hard contact in the middle of the field. One of the things we look for more often than not, especially during batting practice, is how they handle the bat. Most of the time, especially young players, they want to see, and don't get me wrong, I love seeing our guys hit the ball out of the park. Absolutely love it. It's one of my favorite things. And we do have a feel-good round at the end of the day. But a lot of our work, what we'll do is we will put up screens to the pull side, or like the where they really want to go ahead and try to hit the ball right down the line to see it fly out of the park. And we force them to learn how to make that hard, consistent contact in the big part of the field.
Yeah, I think that's a great drill for high school coaches to focus on for sure. Let's jump to this year though. This fall, how did the fall go at Georgia State, and how are you feeling now that you're into the new year and the season's approaching?
Really good. We're really excited to get going. We open up with Belmont on Friday, February 14th here in Georgia State, or here in Panthersville at Georgia State. So we're really excited for the season. We've got a bunch of new faces. I'm sure everybody knows about the transfer portal, and we got hit a little bit hard this past year with it. Part of that's the success. We had a few guys go into the portal, and most of them landed at bigger schools, and good for them. I mean, it really shows what we've done in terms of our development here at Georgia State. But we've got a really, really talented class that came in. We're really excited. We had three great inter squads this past weekend. We have 4 more this week, so we're really excited to get going here on opening day.
I think you have my notes here because the next thing I wanted to talk about was the transfer portal and kind of the state of the NCAA and NCAA baseball and what's going on. How much recruiting do you do at Georgia State? Are you involved a lot in that?
Yeah, I'm the recruiting coordinator here as well.
Oh, you are? Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about the transfer portal. What are your general thoughts on the transfer portal? Are there any misconceptions that you think people have about it?
I think again, a lot of what you're seeing is the ultra success stories of guys going in, and football is the biggest driver of it. I'm sure everybody's seen the guys are getting 7-figure deals going into the transfer portal. There's been tampering. There's been all these crazy stories coming out of football. Biggest thing with baseball is we like the transfer portal, because in our opinion, what it is, it gives guys an opportunity that may be locked at a different program where they're stuck behind somebody. They're very talented players, but unfortunately they're just not getting the playing time that they need to develop. A lot of times they'll go in to look for a place. We're able to get very talented players that just may not have the same number of games played at the college level, but we're able to get them into our program, and we've had a lot of success with that. Flip side of the coin is we've done our job. We've developed players, and they want to go see if they can play at the. Again, we're a mid-major team. They want to go see if they can play at Georgia or Georgia Tech or Tennessee or Florida. And I've told every one of our guys that comes through my office, hey, I want to enter my name in the portal. Best of luck to you. I understand it. again, if Toronto Blue Jays are going to call me, I'm probably going to entertain that as well. So that's kind of the way that we look at it. But I think there's good, there's bad. To me, the hardest part sometimes, and it lands on the player side of it, is the misconception that the grass is always going to be greener on the other side of the fence. That, hey, I didn't get my due here in this program. I'm going to go in the portal and I'm going to show you what I can do in the next program. And there's been some, there have been some players that have gone in that haven't landed. This past year, I think there were about 5,000 Division I baseball players that went in, and I believe only about 2,500 of those wound up at another Division I school. Now, some guys wound up junior college, Division II, things like that, but not all those players land, which is unfortunate. But again, going back to it, I think it's a very beneficial thing. I think it's just kind of become a little bit of the Wild West, where especially when it comes to football, basketball, where guys are just going in kind of seeking bigger paychecks. So it's kind of a whole encompassing thing, but there are some huge positives of the transfer portal.
I'm going to ask a loaded question. Are there any changes that you think could be made to kind of smooth out the process of the transfer portal?
I understand where the NCAA is coming from on this. And again, I don't want to talk about any kind of litigation or anything that's going on. I understand where they're coming from, making sure that the players have the most opportunity to seek the place that fits best for them. Totally understand that. I do think there needs to be a few more guardrails in place. I did particularly like the 1 year rule, where you could transfer for one time, right? You signed at a place, coaching change, whatever it was, right? You could transfer in the portal. You had a one-time transfer exception, not a problem. You can go from one school to the next. But the next time you wanted to go in, you had to sit out a year in order, right? It kind of limited the number of times guys would go in, because you're seeing 2, 3, 4 multiple transfers now. I think that was kind of a great thing. I'm not really sure if there's a way to kind of put some guardrails on it. For me, the best way that we have done it here is really establish our culture and have guys want to come back. I think there's a lot of guys that go in the portal that are unhappy with their current situation and just kind of want to look for something new, that, whether or not that's, they think it's going to be better. Kind of one of the sayings that we use here, it's the grass isn't always greener on the other side. The grass is the greenest where you water it. So, take care of our guys here, take care of the chemistry here, make sure that they're happy and that they want to come back.
Yeah, as a recruiting corner, how do you kind of navigate that? Because that's going to be tough when, you don't know how many guys you might lose the following year, depending on the transfer portal now. So how do you, when you're looking at your recruiting board, how vast is it, and kind of how do you navigate who you're recruiting versus who you think you're going to lose?
So, every year we've got, 4, 5, 6 guys that are kind of, there's a little star next to their name. Hey, they're a top prospect or a draft prospect. And those guys, if for some reason they don't get drafted, a lot of times they do want to jump to that SEC, ACC, Big 12 level, where, they want to go see if they can play at that next level up from the Sun Belt. And so we'll have some names. Again, we've got a big board in my office that we've got, hundreds of names on, of guys that we're going to keep tabs on for stats of the season, keep in contact with. It's a little bit of a sprint. So the portal window will open up this year. It's June 1st to July 1st in the summer. So it'll open up for a whole month. But the vast majority of names go in the first week or 10 days. And so we'll typically know within the first week who we're going to lose. Who's planning on going. There are some guys that we have that we'll sit down with halfway through the year, where and this is, every program, that, hey, listen, I want to go to junior college. I want to go to a different spot, which is understandable. And we know we have to replace them. The hardest ones in my career have been the guys that go in last minute, where you expect them to come back. You've got them, on your board as the starter for the next year. And unfortunately, for different reasons, that we have guys that go in super late. So it has happened. It's just part of the game, and sometimes it's just kind of a sprint where it's no different in my eyes than an injury, right? A guy just happens to go down, and we got to find the next man up right away.
Just so people understand the recruiting process, how much of your recruiting would you say is done in person versus word of mouth, talking to coaches, taking recommendations, social media, video? How is recruiting kind of done now? at Georgia State.
So and a lot more of it. It used to be, when I first started, a little bit was online, calling, texting, but you went and saw players to make sure they played. Now with the way social media has exploded, PBR, Perfect Game, different recruiting services and profiles, things like that. A lot more of it has been, players are more exposed than ever, which is a great thing. From our standpoint, what we do here at Georgia State, a lot of the contact is done early from word of mouth, coaches, scouts, other people that we know that have seen guys play. From that point, we'll establish contact for the classes that we can, get to know them a little bit. But one of the tenets that we have is we've got to see you play on the field. There's a lot to see on video, but we're going to come see you play in person, right? It doesn't matter if you're playing in Georgia. It doesn't matter if you're playing in Canada. You can be playing anywhere across the country. We're happy to come and see if we think you'll be a fit for the program. But recruiting isn't just the talent or just the product you put on the field. The recruiting is the whole person, right? You got to carry your academics. One of the worst things as a coach is having to worry about a guy, what he's doing off the field. Right. So we got to know who you are as a person, how your academics are, and then, the playing comes into it as well. So it's a whole package. It's not just the one side of the coin.
Recruiting in Canada, especially the further south you go, how much is that considered? Because you're in Georgia, you go to Alabama, Florida, Tennessee, all around your players. So how difficult is it for a Canadian to find themselves in a school the further south you go, in your opinion?
And I think it's all about, the hardest thing for me when I came down here to play was I was just light years behind in the number of games that I had played. Again, it's an actual winter up north. Yeah, there are guys down here. There's tournaments that went on. There was a New Year's tournament down in Florida that we had some players at this year. So right down there, they're playing 100, 150 games a year. Where I remember there was one summer playing at home. I got 15 games in and I was happy. Right. So, but in terms of exposure, we look everywhere. Right. There's a lot of players. We've been in contact with a bunch of Canadian players. We've sent some offers out. We haven't been able to land one yet. But again, the best advice that I've got for people north of the border is continue to play, continue to sell yourself. It's not just it's not a dead end road. My journey a little bit. I played at an academy in Canada. I played a Prairie Baseball Academy. I was there for 2.5 years, and was able to get the exposure that I needed and come down and play in the South. There's phenomenal Canadian players everywhere.
Shout out to the Prairie Baseball Academy there. I like it. So to kind of end off here, I always like to ask, what are your expectations for this team in 2025? Are you a goal setter? Do you set specific goals, or are you just more day-to-day operations?
So we have expectations for this team. We've done it in the past where, hey, we've set a goal. Hey, we're going to be a regional team. We're going to win 40 games. We're going to, we'll set that we're going to have a 3.5 ERA. We're going to hit 150 home runs. We've done different things. What we found, especially with the players, is that if we start falling short of that, is that players will start to press, and then, hey, it's no different than telling a hitter, hey, you're going to hit 300. Okay, great. Well, I was 0 for 3 today. Well, now I got to go 2 for 3 tomorrow to catch up, right? I went 0 for 3 again. Now I got to go 3 for 3 to stay on pace, right? And so we've seen that kind of in players where they'll press. And so our expectations, we've set some very, very simple expectations of how we are going to play, the way we're going to play the game. And then our philosophy is that if we meet or exceed our expectations every single time out, we will be on the right side of the score more often than we'll be on the wrong, and the wins and losses will take care of themselves.
Lars, this was a lot of fun. I really appreciate you taking the time. It was great to kind of go into the South here a little bit for this college coaching show. So thank you so much.
Not a problem at all. Happy to join.
Would it really be the college coaches show, Jackson, if we didn't go into the South at least once?
Oh, exactly. Yeah, great to hear. Another interesting perspective, and we really appreciate Lars for taking some time with us today.
Yeah, a guy that's been all over college baseball, like you mentioned, played at the University of Illinois, a great minor league career. He got to AAA. Then he goes to the University of Florida. How's that for your first assistant coaching job? And now finds himself at Georgia State. So a lot of great perspective there on how he works with hitters, how he recruits. He's going to eventually land a Canadian recruit, fingers crossed. But again, just a lot of really good insight for players, high school players, parents, and coaches.
Yeah, I noticed a couple things. You mentioned how, all the analytics and stuff, he's really just focused on hitting the ball hard. And kind of just narrowing in on that. I appreciated that, trying to cut through the clutter a little bit. Other thing, just mentioning how the grass is green wherever you water it, right? And I think in relation to that sort of conversation about the transfer portal and things like that, and I think that is a lasting perception that I'm going to remember, because it's true, right? You put in that work, right? What you put in, what you get out, and things like that, and that's a really good way to kind of look at the transfer portal in modern NCAA athletics.
Yeah, and it's kind of I really liked getting him on because we had Mike McRae, the pitching guy, and now we had Lars Davis, the hitting guy. So we really got a full picture of what goes on in college baseball through this coaches show. This is the finale. Opening day is right around the corner. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. We'll have lots of great guests throughout the college season and into the summer. Until then, though, take care.
Thank you for listening. Be sure to check out Canadian Baseball Network for extensive and comprehensive coverage of the latest in Canadian baseball. And The Baseball Zone, Canada's leading instructional baseball academy and training home to thousands of MLB pro, college, and youth baseball players.